PBC Boxing returns, this time to Amazon Prime Video for Amazon Prime subscribers. And my next guest is an award-winning broadcaster, Brian Custer. He will be the blow-by-blow for this big event. Brian, how are you?
Man, great.
Great. That's good to have you. Hey, how excited are you now moving from the host position to now blow-by-blow next to Keith Thurman and BC, Brian Campbell?
No, it's fun. It's getting back to, some of my roots. I mean, obviously I do it basically every day from ESPN, from doing football, basketball. And, when I first got into boxing, I was calling blow-by-blow. So this allows me to tap back into skill set that I love to do, and gives me an opportunity to do a little bit of both, because you got to host and call the fights this coming weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, this one is going to be one, if you have the Prime subscription, this will be free to them starting Saturday at 8 o'clock, which is one thing that I will say that Prime has done very, very well. The flow of these shows is very good. You're not waiting around. Very, very family and fan friendly, where the show started at 8 and it keeps moving to the next fight, which is very good for us on the East Coast. I can tell you that.
Well, absolutely. I think that was one of the things when, Amazon Prime wanted to get into it. One of the things they said they wanted to differentiate themselves from the others was they wanted to keep the action moving, and they wanted to make sure that we get the fight. As soon as that fight's over, let's get that next fight in there, because that's what people want to see. They want to see action, and that's kind of what we do. We try to keep the show moving, and that's certainly one of the things that we'll be doing, obviously, October 19th.
Now, let me ask you, as a broadcaster, does the flow affect how you call a fight or not? Is something that stop and go would bother you? No?
No, not really. I mean, I think it is still all about trying to tell the fighter's story. It's still all about trying to give the fight fan as much information as possible, how that fighter prepared for this fight, maybe some interesting nuggets about what they did in preparation for the fight. But it is still trying to give the fan as much information as possible. You just have to do it in a more concise way.
Now, a couple of things that I noticed when HBO and Showtime did step away from boxing, the one thing that was missing was the backstories of the fighters. Is that something that Amazon's going to look to working with the PBC series to try to get you invested in the fighters, which I think was a key component to the success of HBO and Showtime?
Yeah, I think, it was all about building those guys. And the way that you get fans to fall in love with those fighters is that you build them up. You tell their stories. You do feature stories on them so that they feel like they have a connection with them. I think, Amazon Prime has tried to do that in their Gloves Off series, that are kind of like the documentary things that they do before the fights. And that's their way of trying to do that. Obviously, you're going to see a lot more of that in the future. But, obviously at Showtime, HBO the same, we were kind of the masters that do it because we certainly had a vested interest in the fighters.
And you did have some of the most knowledgeable people on the broadcast with you, and even on this one, you have alongside of you, Keith Thurman and BC Brian Campbell, which is a key to have someone who has an insight like a Keith Thurman for fights like this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that, one time it can bring us, hey, look, he was in preparation to fight Tim Tszyu. So he's going to give that kind of insight on what, hey, maybe Murtazaliev needs to be doing during the fight, watching it. And he's got a very keen eye, so knowledgeable about the fight game. So, yeah, I think, that's one of the pluses, that you get to work with great people, whether it's Mauro Ranallo, whether it's Abner Mars, and in this case is BC Brian Campbell and Keith Thurman.
Well, let's get to the fight. Let's turn our attention to the fight. Now, Tim Tszyu initially was supposed to kick off the first PBC series against your partner, Keith Thurman. Injury, Keith had to step away. The fight itself, I will admit, when it first was signed, I thought, okay, this might be, Fundora might not be the type of guy to put up a good enough fight like a Keith Thurman would. We were shocked. The fight was fantastic, phenomenal debut. The debut you want to have if you're going to make a first impression, not like the impression I made here on the first go around with you on this call, but it's something you want to make a great impression about, and you did. You brought it to the table. Now, here's the question. Tim Tszyu suffers probably one of the worst cuts you can see in a boxing because it's right there. That vein that goes through there will cut. You will not stop it. I asked Stitch Duran about it. He said that is not going to stop. Tim Tszyu steps right back in it against a 22-0 fighter for the IBF Junior Welterweight Super Welterweight Championship, 154 pounds, against Bakram Murtazaliev. Why take that fight as the one coming back instead of a lesser opponent? Not to say that anybody's a fighter that can fight. That's a dangerous opponent. What are your thoughts on how this fight could play out?
Well, to me, that just speaks to who he is. Tim Tszyu will tell you, I'm a warrior and I want it, and I want it now. I mean, how long was he clamoring to fight Jermell Charlo when Jermell Charlo was the undisputed champion? He wanted that fight. He was disappointed when Charlo hurt his hand. He's always wanted big fights. He said that's the reason why he came over here. He wanted to do kind of like what his father did. His father came over here, obviously a Hall of Famer, Custer, had fought all of the best. And that's the same type of mentality that Tim Tszyu has. And why not? The IBF made him the number one contender. And if it's against the champion, he said, it's the opportunity to get my title back. You talked about that fight. This guy gets that cut there in the fourth round. And, I even asked him about that. He was the guest at our last Prime pay-per-view fight. And I said, do you think your corner did you a disservice by not stopping that fight? Because you were up on the cards at that point. That fight could have gone to the judges' scorecard in the fifth. You would have basically won that fight, kept your title. And he said, nah, I wanted to keep fighting. I told my corner, no, I want to keep fighting. That fight was a bloody mess. It was for boxing fans who just love the sport. They loved every minute of it because those guys looked like bloody ghouls. Halloween's right around the corner. And that's what that fight looked like. It looked like Halloween. But Tim Tszyu said, that's the kind of fight I wanted. I wanted to continue on and to show that I am indeed a champion. Now, he lost that split decision, obviously, to Fundora. He wants his title back. And why not fight a guy who has beaten everyone he stepped in the ring with, in Murtazaliev, who is a really big puncher and knows nothing except to come forward and fight. When you talk about styles make fights, two guys who know how to come forward, who throw big punches, this should really be an all-action main event.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. And that goes to show you the superstardom that he will ascend to, because he will take these fights. There's not too many people now, not to name names, that will kind of step aside to other places and say, hey, this one's a little easier. Not Tim Tszyu. And that does trickle down from the top with his father. His father did fight everybody on that high level. The difference, I think, with Tim Tszyu now is he could be more of a superstar with the social media aspect. And now a company like Amazon and PBC backing someone like that, he's got a whole country behind him. It's a massive country. He could be a huge star there. I think he's already a huge star there. But here in the States, where you can make that kind of money, Tim Tszyu is a guy that you could put your rocket to and send him off to space.
Well, that's why he's here. Yeah, that's exactly why he's here. And listen, he's already even talked about, I want to win this fight against Murtazaliev, which will not be easy at all. No. Murtazaliev, who went over to Germany and beat Jack Holke to get the title, just goes to show you what kind of fighter he is to go over there and take it. But Tszyu has already said, I want the title, and then after that, I want to start the negotiations with Terrence Crawford and try to fight Terrence Crawford and unify. So again, that goes to your point of that's the type of guy he is. He wants nothing but big fights and to have his own legacy be just as good as his father's is.
Now let's go to Murtazaliev for a second here. You said he went over to a different country. He'll fight anybody, anywhere. Here's a guy who's coming, and this past weekend we saw the European bloc kind of fight. The Eastern European bloc fighters fight each other. That is the style now that seems to be a very prominent. If you go down the list of even MMA fighters, a lot of them from that Eastern bloc. Is this the changing of the guards a little bit, where USA boxing was very high? Now they're looking to just take USA boxing out of the Olympics as a whole, and now this style is starting to come up. Power punching, good boxers technically, but they're all powerful, strong fighters who are in your face, great chins, can take a good punch. Is this the changing of the guard here, you think?
No, I don't think so. I just think that it's just steady. It's not like they have taken over, But I just think that, these are guys who have always been fundamentally sound and who love to fight. Listen, Lomachenko is thinking about giving it up, thinking about, hey, look, that I may have had enough. I've been through too much. Obviously that Bivol fight was really an entertaining fight. I don't think that, the Eastern European fighters are so much taking over. I just think that they've been here for a long time. Their style is always going to be crowd pleasing because for the most part, most of them, except for Lomachenko was different because he used movement with his power. Most of these guys are just come forward type guys. Bivol has that great counterpuncher, but Beterbiev just showed I'm just a come forward type guy. Now he showed a little bit more movement in this fight than we've seen in the past, but I just think that it's just a style that has always been there. It's been constant. But I still think we have, some great fighters here. When you talk about pound for pound, some of the greatest fighters in the world are still right here in the States.
I do think the USA style boxing is very, very good. It's the thing with the European fighters that I look at a lot is their amateur pedigrees, always 250, 300 fights. You don't get that here. A lot of it has to do with where they grow up because of
and that they're paid. Also, another thing, the government sponsors them. And that's the difference as opposed to here in the States. Here now in basketball, football, you got NIL. So, you got a lot of guys who want to stay amateur, so to speak, because they can make so much money as an amateur. Boxing's different. Boxing here is different. It's not like you got a lot of money at all helping these guys. So they got to go pro over there. And he said, the government basically pays them to be amateurs and puts them on salary and funds them for that. So that's why you see a lot of those guys have 200 fights. Lomachenko, what was it, 301, I think he was as an amateur. And so many of those guys end up turning pro later, whether they're 25, 26, 27, because they've been sponsored so long by the government.
And that is definitely an advantage. Most boxers here that are in poverty have to do it out of necessity, whether they want to make money for their families or what have you. And that is a big difference there. When you get sponsored by the government, who wouldn't do that? And there's no NIL in boxing, I can tell you that. That wouldn't happen anywhere that I know of anyway. So overall, you're now moving in with this Amazon Prime Video series. Are you going to be now on the pay-per-view portion as well?
Yeah, I mean, all of that, continues on. I mean, this is the first one that's free for people who have Amazon Prime, and that's the great thing. You're going to get 3 fights starting off at 8:00 Eastern time. So that part of it's going to be great. And obviously you've already seen the news. December 14th, PBC pay-per-view on Prime is back. You got Tank Davis, Lamont Roach going to be headlining. They're going to be fighting in Houston. That'll come your way on December 14th. Obviously, we'll be there for that. There's word that the Charlos will be making their return as well on that fight card. So, listen, the PBC on Prime pay-per-view continues on December 14th. Obviously, will be the next one. And then, of course, in January, David Benavidez has already said, I'm coming back. So you'll see another one come the turn of the year in January as well.
And everybody thinks, you got to go to Saudi Arabia to get the good fights made. Right here in the span of almost 4 months, you're getting 3 of the fights that want to be that are going to be. And not only that, they're all competitive fights. This fight coming up this Saturday. Either way, get yourself a free trial. If everybody's got Prime, to be quite honest with you, my wife does, and I don't even know I have it. So it's going to be there. It's free. You got a free 30-day trial. Why not sign up? See what it's like. You could see Brian Custer, Keith Thurman, and BC Brian Campbell right there calling the blow-by-blow.
All you got to do is go to, again, hit your app. Even if you go on your laptop, the Prime, all you've got to do is get there, because as you pointed out, the great thing is the 30-day trial, because you can sign up for Prime, sign up for it, watch the fight, even if you don't want to go buy anything. I know it was Prime days like last week, because I bought all kinds of stuff. You can cancel it on Sunday, and you still got to watch the fight for free. So you can do it Watch it on your phone. You can do it on the app. You can get on your laptop and watch the fight. This deal can't get any sweeter for you. And then, like you said, hey, look, even if you want to keep it, you got Tank Davis fighting December 14th on PBC pay-per-view on Prime. So listen, the fights are going to get bigger. You know, Morel Benavidez already said they're going to fight in January. You hear word that, you know, Fondora's trying to come back, maybe even fight Errol Spence. You know, there's so much coming up on PBC on Prime. You certainly don't want to miss it.
And you know what, guys out there that are listening, you could really do it. You could do your wife a solid. Say, hey, we're going to get this Prime for you. And you let her buy what she wants, and you get to watch the fights. It's a sneaky way of getting it. Hey, you got it. And you get the free trial. And you got it. That's the way I look at it, because my wife controls everything in the house. But anyway, Brian Custer, 2-time Emmy Award winner. It has been an honor. I've followed your career from afar, and I've actually admired what you've done. It's been an honor to have you on my show here, and I will look forward to everything that you've been coming up to in the next couple of weeks.
Man, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to being in Orlando, doing this, doing Tank Davis in December on pay-per-view, and then obviously, you know, back to doing Sports Center, Get Up, and college football and college basketball too, right around the corner on ESPN.
Sign up, 30-day free trial. Tim Tszyu trying to get that 154-pound championship back. As always, Brian, it is a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, the 19th of October, make sure you hit Prime, and I'll see you there.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.